they learn that this is already the third incident today, all involving harassment accompanied by violent scratching. All patients have been sent to the city's central hospital. The officers cautiously warn Jason that such strange things have been happening frequently lately. It seems to be an infectious disease, and he must be extra careful. However, Jason can't worry about that yet. He calls his father to ask if he fired the store clerk. The father on the other end of the phone admits without hesitation that the employee often stole things from the supermarket, so why keep him there? After listening, Jason silently hangs up. But the troubles of life are far from over. Jason can't help but frown. Recalling the officer's previous warning, he feels that a natural disaster is quietly approaching. Since the clerk was fired, Jason has to take his daughter to the supermarket to help. Near closing time, after getting paper for the last customer, a commotion suddenly comes from the store entrance. Jason immediately realizes something is wrong and signals his daughter to stay quiet. He walks over quickly to check and finds two guys running into the store to rob it. The customer didn't show himself, but quietly dialed the police. Jason, standing by the safe, recognizes the robbers' identities at a glance. It's the clerk fired by his father this morning, and the other partner is his niece. Jason advises the clerk to take the money and leave quickly, not to cause more trouble, but unexpectedly, a gunshot suddenly rings out from outside. Jason runs over and happens to meet his daughter. He pulls out an alarm and tells her to run to the basement and hide. With no more worries, Jason doesn't plan to go easy on the two robbers. But in the next moment, he sees the cashier lying on the ground wailing in pain. It turns out the gunshot just now hit the cashier. The clerk can no longer worry about the robbery and rushes forward to perform emergency rescue. The niece who fired the shot desperately explains that a little girl bit her just now, and in her panic, she fired and happened to hit the cashier. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door. Looking through the monitor, it's the officer who arrived after receiving the report. Just as the two robbers are at a loss, the officer outside lets out a miserable scream. His abdomen was actually ripped open by two mad. Everyone feels a chill down their spines. Even the customer who called the police shows himself because his phone received an official emergency bulletin. Due to the outbreak of a deadly virus called itch, the entire city has entered a state of emergency. All flights are grounded. Roads are blocked, and citizens are required to stay indoors. The main symptom of the virus is an uncontrollable urge to scratch, which eventually leads to self-mutilation or attacking others until death. Taking advantage of the two robbers' distraction, Jason turns and grabs the handgun. With the help of the bald customer, he ties the two robbers to a pillar, then non-stop runs to check on the injured cashier. His condition is very bad. He must be sent to the hospital immediately. Suddenly, an alarm sounds from downstairs. It's Jason's daughter's locator ringing. Running down to look, an infected person is attacking a human. Jason forces himself to calm down and pulls the trigger before the opponent rushes up. Picking up the locator from the ground, he notices the downstairs window is open, likely where the infected person ran in from. Jason's heart sinks to the bottom. Holding the gun, he keeps looking back and forth, and finally finds his missing daughter in a storage room. Having experienced that terrifying scene just now, Jason recognizes the dangerous situation. Now, this small supermarket has become the safest shelter. They must unite all forces to survive. The clerk also realizes his mistake. Actually, his original intention was just to ask for the wages his father owed him. Additionally, since the clerk's niece, Curly, is pregnant, Jason ultimately decides to untie the ropes of the two. At this time, the cashier's injury is more serious. Perhaps sensing his end is near, he actually admits that the thief was actually himself. When Jason's father checked the accounts and found items missing, he falsely accused the clerk of stealing. A minor misunderstanding was resolved like this, but it's of no use to the current situation. At this moment, police sirens sound outside. It turns out the police have started to indiscriminately clear the infected. After a gunshot, the infected person at the door falls beside the officer's body. Everyone can't help but gasp. Has the situation outside become this perilous? Although Jason's daughter can't speak, she often uses writing to express her inner thoughts. Seeing the words "Grandpa I'm away," Jason feels a pang in his heart and immediately dials his father's phone. The old man on the other side of the screen looks haggard, and the miserable screams of a woman come from the room from time to time. It turns out Jason's mother was infected with a virus, and the old father was also scratched by her. Although he doesn't know if he will mutate, he decides to stay with his wife to end the pain together. The old man uses his last strength to urge Jason to protect his daughter. When the phone screen goes black, a huge grief submerges Jason, but at the same time, the determination to protect his daughter becomes even firmer in his heart. Suddenly, a thumping sound comes from outside the main door. Jason curiously walks forward and finds through the monitor that the officer, who had been dead for a long time, actually stood up. The noise he made also alerted others. By the time everyone gathers in front of the camera, the infected person who was shot earlier has also resurrected. Everyone is speechless with shock. Does this virus not only bring scratching madness, but also turn the infected into the living dead? Jason suddenly remembers there are 2 bodies downstairs. He runs down in a panic, only to see that victim. This guy is moving on his own. Scared, the clerk repeatedly swings the axe in his hand, and Jason kills it with a headshot. Then they start searching for the female infected person. As expected, she is already resurrected. The 2 men hurry to catch up, only to see that Curly has already hacked the infected person to death, though she was also seriously injured. Jason first disposes of the infected bodies before having time to check the others' injuries. Curly seems to have been affected by fetal distress, but she stubbornly thinks she'll be fine after lying down for a while. The worst situation is the female cashier. She finally passes away due to excessive blood loss. Since she was an employee of the supermarket, Jason organizes a simple memorial service for her. The culprit, Curly, looks incredibly guilty. If she hadn't accidentally pulled the trigger, such a tragedy wouldn't have happened. Jason thinks about it and feels they should carry the body to the basement. Who would have thought that just as the bald customer bent down, cashier resurrected? Her arm was scratched with several bloody marks. Jason hurries to pin her down, and the bald customer, even more furious, carries out the cash register and smashes it hard against her head. Everyone present is confused. The cashier was clearly hit by a bullet. Why would she also be infected and mutate? The bald customer is even more panicked. Her arm was scratched, and she doesn't know if she will be infected. Since it's only the first day of the virus outbreak, everyone has only a partial understanding of its transmission. To reassure everyone, Jason specially brings out his father's treasured fine wine. At this special dinner, the survivors open their hearts for the first time and start telling stories of their respective lives. The brief warmth makes them temporarily forget the desperate situation they are in. Halfway through the dinner, Curly suddenly says she wants to go back and rest. The 3 men stay to continue drinking. When a bottle of strong liquor hits the bottom, a scream suddenly comes from upstairs. Jason rushes there, but doesn't notice the bald customer starting to scratch her skin fiercely, looking as if she had been holding it back for a long time. It seems she has also caught the itching virus. The one who screamed earlier was Jason's daughter. It turns out she saw Curly covered in blood. Unexpectedly, she was also scratched while fighting the infected earlier. Now suffering from sepsis, not only can the baby not be saved, but she herself is as weak as a bamboo in the wind. The only hope now is to go to the pharmacy on the corner to get some antibiotics. This task can only be given to Curly's uncle, Clerk. After he quietly slips out, Jason immediately closes the main door. Whether he lives or dies next depends on his luck. However, before the results here come out, Jason finds the bald customer showing itching symptoms. Quietly following her to the bathroom, he finally confirms the bald woman is also infected. Surprisingly, this person is very self-aware and actively locks herself in an isolation room, not wanting to hurt anyone after mutating. Jason feels a strange pang in his heart, and a deep sense of helplessness sweeps through his whole body. However, he soon finds that there is suddenly no movement in the isolation room. Worried that something happened to her, he's about to open the door to look, but unexpectedly, the bald woman bursts out. She has completely lost her mind at this point, scratching back and forth on Jason. Suddenly, the man groans and slowly falls to the ground. It turns out Jason's daughter ended her with an axe. Jason roars to drive his daughter away, then runs to the sink to wash his body. Suddenly, there is a knocking at the door. The clerk successfully retrieved the antibiotics. Jason hesitates for a long while before cautiously opening the door. However, he doesn't let him in immediately, preparing to observe him in isolation for a period first. After taking the antibiotics handed by the clerk, Jason walks quickly to Curly, but he soon realizes one thing. The tragedy of the bald customer shows that even being scratched will lead to infection by that terrible virus. Jason sighs, puts down the antibiotics, and goes to the shelves. He is very worried that he was also infected by the bald customer. He picks up a box of toothpaste and smears it all over his body. Although he doesn't know if this method can disinfect, at least it makes him feel better psychologically. If he mutates and leaves this world, his daughter will be completely alone. Thinking of this, Jason decides to eliminate other hidden dangers first. By this time, the virus in Curly's body has completely erupted. Jason uses a pillow to press down hard on her head until she is completely motionless. Jason then quietly comes to the hall and sees from the shadows that the clerk is also constantly scratching. Clearly, he was also scratched while going out for the keys. Now Jason has no more reservation. He pulls out the handgun and is about to settle him, but the clerk cries out to see his niece one last time. Jason softens for a moment and opens the glass door. He originally thought the clerk would understand his act of killing, since Curly was already infected. Unexpectedly, the clerk suddenly explodes in rage, saying he must avenge his niece. His hands tighten more and more, and Jason finds it difficult to breathe until there is no more movement. However, the clerk doesn't feel his grudge is settled. He actually wants to kill Jason's daughter. But just as he is about to pull the trigger, a strange noise comes from behind. Looking over, it's the dead niece who has mutated. The man stands there dazed and at a loss. But Jason has already stood up and directly slashes the clerk's throat with a paper cutter. Then he picks up the handgun and kills the mutated Curly with one shot, completely resolving all hidden dangers. Jason doesn't forget to wipe away the blood on the ground. He wants to create a safe and comfortable environment for his daughter as much as possible. After finishing everything, Jason silently walks into the downstairs storage room and locks himself in. Although he isn't sure if he is infected, even if there is only a 1 in 1,000 chance, he doesn't want his daughter to face any hidden danger. When the little girl wakes up from her sleep, she sees the message Jason left for her. Learning that her father might be infected, the little girl silently walks to the isolation room downstairs and unexpectedly speaks for the first time. The above is all the content of Deadly Itch. Although most of the story scenes take place in a supermarket, the way the virus works is quite novel, and the portrayal of fatherly love is very deep. Friends who like this type can go see the original film. At least you won't feel it's a trashy commercial movie.